Hi, my name's Bob Greenyer, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 5th of March 2024 to O-Day. So what is the symbol there, everyone? Can you hear me? Hi, Tony Jaboni. Hi, Vanilla Isis. Hi, Adonius. Hi, Gorky Goss, Ren van der Wold, Artifact per Nicola Hoakland, DIY Projects with Chalxus, Stuart N, Simeon Hine. Hi, Rick Boyd. Hi, Wayne. Fantastic to have you here. We're going to be using the tables you programmed. Thank you, Wayne Power, there in New Zealand. Hi, Misunderstood. Hi, my beautiful wife, Kim Greenier. There we go. Nick Knock, Lithnick. Who else do we have? We have DL Media. Thanks for the kind words there. I'm sure that's appreciated. Hi, Screwdriver Tuning. Mr. Gate Mode, Joseph Koller. Welcome from Germany. Got a few people joining us from Germany. Hi, Daisy. Hi, D2105K. Just got a bit of weak streaming here, so just hold with me a second. I'll give you a chance to guess what the symbol is on the screen. Yes, very good, Vanilla Isis. It's gold. It is also the solar symbol. It's the Ra, and also for Sol. But in this presentation, we are looking at O-Day gold. Yes, the audio's turned off just for a minute. Hello, are we back in the house? Can you hear me? We had some data issues there. We might still have some data issues. Yes, we've got no data, sorry. Sorry, guys, the data streaming here is very bad. I'm trying to resolve it. Hi, my name is Bob Grinier, and I'm a volunteer with the Martin Fleischmann Memorial Project. So welcome this 25th of March 2024 to O-Day. Gold, always believe in it so. Oh, that's so cheesy. All right, so hopefully this connection will stay. Can you hear me? Welcome, EBB, Misunderstood, Gordon Doherty, DL Media, Tony Yaboni. Yes, Tony. Yes, you can see the geometry sitting over that thing that we see there. Hi, Harry, Corky Goss, Juni Tumler, Ken Pratt. Great. Wow, we have a great quorum in the house. And literally in the house, sitting behind me, is one Yin Gazda, who brought me a gift from the spirit world, from Mother Nature. And I will show you that later. Also, it came in a box. Hi, my beautiful wife, Kim. And sorry about the problem there. Hi, Phil Dubois, and me, myself, and hi, Crypto Alchemist. Wonderful. Rennie van der Wood. It's great to have you all here. Zial Pieno and Felix Switek. D2105K. It is, hi, Simeon Hine. Okay, hi, Bo Sinclair. Right, okay, so what you're looking on the screen there, when I switch to the other screen here, here is Ra, the symbol for soul, and the symbol for gold. And you may or may not know that my wife's name, Kim, means gold. And on the right-hand side is an image that I took just under a week ago. Where is it? The 18th of this March 2024 in Alan Goldwater's Magic Sound Lab. And that was in California, in Santa Cruz. Thank you to Alan Goldwater, my fellow director. And I may have mentioned it before, but he is of Jewish descent from Krakow, and his family's bloodline used to make edible gold water. So we have literally a lot of gold going on in this introduction. So next, what you're seeing here on the screen is the single nugget that I bought for crafting the ring for wedding ring for my beautiful wife, and it is in the shape of an elephant, and it came from Alaska, and that has about 18%, I think it was, no, about, it's mostly gold and a little bit of silver in there. I can't remember offhand, but actually it's typical that gold will have a component of silver in there. Also, there is red gold, of which my grandmother's ring was made from Wales. And you can imagine that that might have some copper in it. In fact, the rings we made from that single nugget here, we added some copper in to bring the weight up so that we could actually produce 2 rings. So that is the little elephant nugget that crafted the rings for Gold, my wife, Kim. And here she is, actually, on the 11th of May, 2013, where she is going to demonstrate the singing bowl here in Kerala in India, and she actually gave birth 4 days later to our son. So I'm just going to play that now for you. He says. Let's try that again. Okay, I have a backup. The server's not connecting. Okay, give me a second. Sorry, server's not connecting, so just a few issues. Give me a sec. Okay, plan B. I'll play it here. So what you're seeing here is some Tibetan singing bowls. These are essentially resonant systems. And I want to use these to demonstrate something to everyone about what we need to do in our experiments moving forward. Hi, so I'm here with Pubu, who's from Tibet, and Kim, who's from Vietnam. And they're both from Buddhist countries, and in their hands they have 2 Tibetan singing bowls. Now they're a bit like some of our experiments. They're just sitting there, being very stable, doing nothing, whether we heat them up or cool them down. But they're essentially a resonant system that needs some stimulation. And a lot of the scientists are reporting you need to either stimulate them with lasers or with thermal shock or pressure shock or radio frequency stimulation, something like this. And just to simplify this, I'm going to ask them to do 2 different ways to stimulate these singing bowls. And my beautiful partner there, Kim, who's going to give birth at the end of the month with our first child, is going to show the first way. Okay, so what she did there was gave it a good hard shock, and the bowl sang at its resonant frequency to dissipate that energy. And I'm going to ask Pubu to do the second method. So what she's doing there is she's got a little gamel type thing, and it has, whoa, listen to that. It has some suede on there, and as the friction sort of at the right speed of stimulation, the pressure is released, it's vibrating that bowl at its resonant frequency and allowing it to sing. So I'm just going to take a closer look at that. That's what we want our experiments to do. Now we can either slightly, with a little bit of energy, cause it to resonate, or, Kim will demonstrate again, we can give it a good hard shock. Give it a good hard shock, Kim. Go on.
This?
Hard shock. Okay, now just to show that it can be stimulated the other way, Kim's not done this before, so let's see if you can get it. Now you see what's happening there is she isn't moving it round at the right frequency. Now she is. So you can try and stimulate it. If you get it wrong, you don't see anything. If you get it right, and she's starting to get it right there. So that's basically what we need to do. We need to find some way of stimulating these otherwise stable but resonant systems. Thank you very much, Kim. The new fire is here, in my view. Much later, on the 28th of September 2022, I shared this video by a third party, and I shall play it. That came out of the presentation Ultra, a simple, quick and repeatable demonstration of the linear process. And on the left here, you see the first attempted replication by someone with a different metal of the Ultra experiment. And on there was two spots, many examples of these two spots. And it appeared like one was above and one was below. And we then replicated that. I replicated that, and then David Boutlier replicated that and found there was a bit of magnetism there in the aluminium foil. And I then asked my colleague Alan Goldwater to run some thick foil for as long as he could, and he then asked him to put it under the SEM and see if he would find what I predicted would be iron-rich crenellated microspheres, which he did. You can see on the right there. And so this would appear to be creating iron and also silicon around the outside here from water cavitation with aluminium foil. So thank you, Bo Stinkler, for the super chat there. It's very kind of you. And so Kladov in the 1980s generated a heat generation system, and there was some argument that he was synthesizing iron, and that was part of the process that was creating the heat. And he said that the purpose of this work is to demonstrate the real possibility of cavitation destruction of matter. This was in 1997 to 2002, on the example of transmutation of various chemical elements, showing at least three main modes of destruction. Changing the structure of the nuclide by adding one or more structural elements, changing the structure of a nuclide by dividing into several fragments, changing the structure of the nuclide by dividing into the smallest structural fragments, or by the complete transformation of matter into radiation, into field forms of the existence of matter. The basic process of cavitation destruction of matter occur in ultrasonic activator almost simultaneously, but with varying degrees of intensity. So all these things can occur, and he found that within 2 hours of processing, 19 elements are synthesized, new elements, and up to 360 hours of processing synthesized 55 new elements. And he suggests that there may be super microscopic black holes, and that there are ways of potentially detecting them. Well, we've established that it is this sacred geometry structure, and that it has this unique feature in that you have these structures that are able to move around in a volume of water and have a continuously depressurizing zone, which means there must be an area in here where there is matter is being condensed somehow to have this continuously depressurized zone. And then secondly, there's a beam that comes out, and down here there's another sort of depressurized zone in this direction. And we've seen this in aluminium foil, again here in aluminium foil. This was HHO on tungsten, and we saw that there's this destruction area, this circular here. It's the same point as this, it's the same point as this, and so matter seems to be torn apart at this point and pulled up into this, which is, as we found out, magnetohydrodynamic vortex, and that it is the same kind of thing going on in ball lightning. And this is a ball lightning in Henk Urian's Vega experiment, and that's collided with diffused quartz, and it's got this caduceus running through the middle here. And this destruction area tends to be slightly one-sided. It's definitely got a thing that's over to one side, and I've argued that the Om symbol with its little sort of half crescent and spot indicates the side where the carbon goes in these systems, where the split elements tend to go. And in this particular frame, you can see the destruction zone here down the bottom is offset. And so that is what you get in these systems. Okay. And I also talked about the fact that Tesla had his things there. Right. Now, before I go on, I want to go back to what was happening on the weekend. I was walking with my children and my wife, and it was quite a nice walk, and my son was talking about something that he's very interested in at the moment, which is dinosaurs. And he was talking about how they're so big and why did they die if they're so big and strong and whatever and so heavy. And I was discussing with him the fact that they probably weren't as heavy as the textbooks tell you, because the Earth wasn't actually so big. I didn't go into the fact that the fractal toroidal moment caused by magnetohydrodynamics in the molten metal and so forth in the mantle and below are condensing relic neutrino clusters from the environment, taking that rarefied cosmic material that's coming in and condensing it into normal baryonic matter and growing the Earth and producing heat in the process. I didn't go into that. I just said the Earth is smaller 900 million years ago, 200 million years ago. And so the animals, whilst they're built of the same, type of material, they can actually be physically bigger because there's a difference between mass and weight. And I said, and he couldn't really understand that. So I said, don't worry, we'll go up to the solar observatory or the planetarium in Brno. And there's an outside interactive exhibit where we can explore the difference between mass and weight on different planets. And so this is what we have here. And it's got a little weighing scales here. This is outside, and it has your planetary mass or whatever here. And on Halley's Comet, my daughter here, which it weighs 29 kilograms on Earth, weighs 1 gram on Halley's Comet. Okay. On the moon, she weighs 5 kilograms instead of 29 kilograms. And if I sent my daughter off to the sun, which is not something I'm going to do, by the way, she would weigh 819 kilograms, which I'm sure she would be upset about. However, she would be, as you can see down here, if she was on PSR B1257 plus 12, which is a neutron star, she would be weighing 3 million tons. And therefore, I do not think her bones would be able to support her weight. Okay, so yes, definitely no problem at all if she was on the Earth. No problem at all, really, if she was on the moon. Jupiter, maybe she could just about move at 77 kilograms, but she would have certainly vertebrae problems pretty soon. Probably quite comfortable on Neptune and Saturn and Uranus. But definitely not on Sirius B at 324. Well, that's just basically a lot of weight, isn't it? Anyway, they have another exhibit. If you can imagine, that is telling you how much you weigh on these different planetary and planetoids and so forth, comets. There is another exhibit where there is a demonstration where you literally have like a bar and you can lift a weight, and it's a simulated weight on different planets. Okay, and these things that you lift up actually have a symbol on them, And of course, everyone knows Mars is, and men are from Mars and women are from Venus. But what you may not realize is there's another alchemical symbol, and these are alchemical symbols here. There is a alchemical symbol that was on another one, which is Saturn. Okay? And I was shocked when I saw this, because I had gone to a different alchemical reference when I did my blog many moons ago, and I was only looking at the metals. I wasn't actually I was looking at the chemicals and the metals that were used, not other alchemical symbols. And I hadn't seen this symbol before, and in fact, it's not represented the same everywhere. However, it is represented in the Fulcanelli ring from 1922. So this is a Fulcanelli ring from 1922, and if you see at the top here, below the crown here, it has this symbol for Saturn. And some people think that this is to do with Satan. No, it's not. It's definitely not. I'm going to show you what it is now. So here's our alchemical symbols here. And so there is our sun and gold symbol, the Ra symbol. Okay, the moon is silver. And then we got Mercury, Venus. So we saw Venus there, the female symbol, and that is for copper. The Mars symbol is for iron. And here you can see, even on this one, the symbol is different than you saw on this one here. Yeah, it had a longer tail down here. Okay, so I hadn't seen the symbol represented like that. Anyway, so I'm looking at this here and I'm thinking to myself, well, if this is one symbol on here, then perhaps all of these other elements on here are other alchemical symbols. Okay, but before we go there, I'm going to refer you to a blog that I did many moons ago on Steemit. If I can find it. So this was Making Gold Were Alchemists Right All Along. And so I talk about X, Y, and Z, blah, 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 blah. And this is what I was referring to, is that I was looking at the Royal Society of Chemistry, and I hadn't seen that symbol for Saturn. So it wasn't in my mental map until I was trying to explain to my son about the difference between mass and weight. So his question solved for me on the weekend what was going on with that part of the Fulcanelli ring. And in here I showed that if you have these typical elements of the alchemists, that is lead and mercury and how should we put this? Tin, and they've got bismuth here, bismuth, yeah, okay. Then you using calcium and potassium is typically in the top 3 for the elements most likely to synthesize a proportion of the overall synthesized material as gold. But again, the symbol on the British Chemistry, or the Royal Society of Chemistry, for lead was like this ZZ type symbol. However, in the process of looking at this, I can see that Saturn here actually means lead. So when we are looking at this symbol here, that means lead. It's not Satan. This isn't an evil eye thing. This is the symbol for lead, the alchemical symbol for lead. Now we know the sun and the moon. We've discussed that very much. The sun is the yang, the other one is the yin. And so one is the unwinding of matter, process, and the other one is the winding of matter process. So I wasn't really looking for symbols here. So the next symbol down is this triangle. What is this triangle? Okay, well, looking down. Ah, the triangle is fire. The triangle is fire, right? So let's have a look. So we got fire. So fire and lead. Well, to me, that would imply, because lead has a low melting point, that you're wanting to turn that into a liquid. Okay, I'm just going to note someone down I've got to talk about. Okay, so we're going to turn that into a liquid. Now, at the bottom here, there is another symbol, and so maybe that's another alchemical symbol. So I'm looking down here, I'm trying to find something that fits, you know, what that is. Can't find it. Can't find it? Okay, that's not really helping. By the way, this sulfur is in the other 1730s image we were looking at the other day. So I'm going up again. No, doesn't really look like it. No, what am I missing here? I'm missing something, aren't I? No, I'm not getting it here. And this is basically what I went up and down to try and find it. And I don't know whether I'm going to find it. And then I go, hold on a minute, what's that? What's that? That one there. Oh, I don't know what that is. It's gone somewhere else. This here is calcium oxide. It's just been rotated through 90 degrees. Okay? And it's been presented as a whole here. Okay? So, quicklime and the lead and the heat. And the interesting thing is that we found that when we were doing the fixing Fukushima testing with Slobodan Stankovic in Switzerland some moons ago, and I'll get it here in a minute. We took some calcium carbonate that my beautiful wife had secured from a quarry that her friend works with in Vietnam. And she had got it over to me, and we looked at that on, we exposed it to HHO, you know, oxyhydrogen gas from Slobodan Stankovic's device. And we gave it to the SciTech Analysis Center up here in Brno, the Central European Technology Center. And they coated it with a precious metal, gold in this case, and they went to look to see what it was, and because you need to coat it because it's a non-conductor. And here, before, the calcium carbonate had effectively nothing but calcium carbonate in it. But afterwards, in these ridges, in this annular rings, these circular rings, there was silver. Okay, so it was synthesizing silver. Now, we had seen silver, if you recall, when looking at the materials in the Binjuan Huang reactor from this DHX2 reactor. We saw, remember, the omega, and I will just pull that up so that those that did not see that presentation know what I'm talking about. So give me a second on that. Honest governor. Somewhere. Aha, there we go. So on this one, We have a big yin and yang, and we have an iron sort of rod coming in here, and another one coming, another vortex component coming in here. Anyway, this side, if you recall, was silver on this side of the omega, and this is carbon. So this is probably the yang tearing things apart and feeding it over to here, and the yin is making it stronger and stronger. Okay, so we can see that it is able to produce silver in various instances. Can we produce heavier elements? That is the question. Okay, well, I am going to just take a pause because I need to visit the voice room. So I'm going to give you that frame there, and I'm going to ask you to see what you can see on the image on the right. Okay, what have we seen? What have we seen? A screaming face of Where's Waldo? Yes, not bad, not bad. I actually call this image the Scream. Windhex is almost the same as Windhex, yes. I agree. The ring face. Yes, someone spotted a fat Oreo on the far right, yes. Okay, Lara's giving up. Okay, so I have a Photoshop which I will pull up, and we can go through the image. Okay. So here we have it. Okay, so what do we see? Well, maybe you have seen these two areas here, and you've seen this, And so I think probably we will look to overlay the sacred geometry. So let me just bring that up. And we have it here. Okay. And the destruction zone here starts at the bottom of this like area here. So exactly where that is our destruction zone. And if I turn that off, you can see here it's off to one side as usual. It's off to one side with a two-order structure. You will get something off to the one side, and this is exactly as you have it in the Great Pyramid. And of course, this is the destruction zone here, I would argue, in the wind hex, that and the ones that are in the fractal subtors. Okay. Now, the beauty of this image is clearly the encasing structures have come off. Now, what I've argued in the past is the area in which material goes in is also the weak point on the structure. And that is where often the structure bleeds out what it produces. But quite beautifully here, you can see that out of what I would call the weak point on the structure around here, I believe that this and this is the yin and the yang, or the yang and the yin, one or the other, that was previously here and here. Okay? Here and here, and it was previously here and here. So the overall structure has gone away, or it was never there. It was just these two. And it was producing a vortex loop between them, a phallico-soliton between them, let's say. And then this moment coming down here, this fractal toroidal moment doing this destruction, okay? And the other beauty is that if you look over here, this one has burst, and you've got one come out here with your fat Oreo here, and another one that's come out here, and it's not there, but it's left the mark where it was. So in this case, it hasn't left the fat Oreo in place, but you can see where it was. And you can see there's kind of a bit of an ejector from this broken tor. So if I put the whole thing on there, you'll see that here is the sacred geometry with our n-level tor, and here are our other tors here. These are n-1 here, n-1, and this is our n-2 and n-2, although it's a shadow of its former self, literally. And so there's our overall structure. The other thing to note here, and thank you to those people that helped support or make some donations after the last presentation, because I will be going later this week to image these in higher fidelity. But what you see here is within the collapse of the structure, for the first time in this system, I'm talking about the fact that it would appear we have helical beam coming out here, there's another helical beam here, and there is a braided beam down here. And so when I next get on the SEM, I'm going to look for more of these coherent matter traveling wave artifacts being left, or material being influenced by the vortical structures that come out when these things collapse. And I'm going to go through, and with the data that we've already presented from this, I think we can explain all of the phenomena that we have witnessed over the last several years in video form and historical tracks that are produced. But that is for another time. This is all about our little friend here, and he is very much like our Fucanelli ring here, I would argue, and even down to the fact that there's a hole down here. I think this is incredibly precise in terms of showing the structure that does the work, as well as embedding within it the alchemical symbols for calcium carbonate, fire, and lead. Okay? Now, I went back to my 6 years ago. I was writing today, 6 years ago, the blog on Steemit about alchemists. Okay? Here. And in here, I talk about John Bockris. So bearing in mind, this ring clearly is showing calcium carbonate, okay? Sorry, calcium oxide rather, quicklime. And why does it need to be, in my view, quicklime? Well, if you add carbon, then you have carbon in the mix. And what do we find when we have carbon and we add it to HHO in a Marsa vibrator, sorry, a Marsa gas? It does not cut through and transmute the titanium. It does not cut through and transmute the wolfram, the tungsten. If you have carbon in there, it does not work. And I believe that is because the carbon is not optimal. And we know that the carbon is not able to go into the system quite as well. And it almost like protects things. It covers them and it protects them from the influence of this coherent matter to a degree. It thermalizes, it breaks down the coherent matter. And so this is why I think they had to use calcium oxide. Well, we have calcium oxide producing silver in our experiments with calcium carbonate under HHO, and the HHO is driving off the carbon dioxide, leaving calcium oxide, which then produces silver, a precious metal. But if you go down here and we look at the work of John Bockris, and I know Simeon Hein will be very happy to hear that, on this blog, which I will put in the references for the remoteview.icu blog here, you can talk. It's talking about here the history of the discovery of transmutation at Texas A&M. I just was reading through this last night, and I was so basically there was this guy Joseph Champion. It's a little bit of a sad story because he used arbitrage by taking someone's investor money and buying gold, let's say at $300 in Hong Kong and selling it in Switzerland for $301. And he got in trouble with the Securities and Exchange Commission. And so John Bockris didn't receive all of the money that was necessary. But if you actually go to the bottom of the Steemit, there's actually a video of him after he got out of jail. And he says he's making gold quite comfortably, but you can't get him. This is the guy, but you can't get involved because he's just working with government people. There we go. This is making gold for the government or something like that. That's his claim. But anyway, the actual document from John Bockris, I thought I better just read that because not sure I read it the first time round, but I thought I'd read it now. And as I was going through this, what I found was it was absolutely critical for him. He was using calcium oxide. So I'm just going to search for it. There we go. So he used calcium oxide there, the quicklime, in his experiments. And basically what they were doing in these experiments is they were essentially creating gunpowder and doing an explosion, okay? And that would be like taking the singing bowl and smacking it, right? And what they found was, I think it was in 3 of the 6 experiments, they found gold, okay? And yeah, so 550 parts per million. And he's saying, I think in one part here, that the gold amount per parts per million is massive compared to typical reserves in America. And even in South Africa, a reserve with 1 part per million gold is sometimes commercially viable. And I would argue, given the fact that we have today pretty much the highest gold price in the history of man, in real dollar terms rather than probably inflation adjusted terms. But anyway, having 550 times the recoverable or or commercially recoverable gold price in 1992, it would probably be a lot higher than that now. So this would be one of the best gold reserves on Earth if you could create gold at this ratio. Anyway, it has the chemical composition of the mixture. So it has got some carbon in there. You've got potassium nitrate, some sulfur, silicon dioxide, iron sulfate, cadmium, mercury chloride, lead oxide, silver. So you have silver there, okay? Silver nitrate, I think, nickel, palladium, whatever. These are the weight of chemicals in the experiment was... Okay, all right, anyway. So they had no gold and they got some gold, okay? All right. The results from Bondi Clegg from Cicero showed twice times increase in platinum in the fired product. The X-ray experiment showed a platinum single. So when I'm looking at this, I am seeing, when I looked at this before, I typed in calcium and lead, okay? Because we've got calcium oxide and lead. We know oxygen can play a role in making the magnetohydrodynamic structure stable. So I'm going to go into nanosoft.co.nz here. And we are going to just do some reactions. So thank you to Philip Power for programming this. So we're going to go to 2-to-2 reactions here. And we're going to type in here calcium. And we're going to go over here. And we're going to type in lead. Okay, so those are the two elements in the Fulcanelli ring. We're going to get rid of that. And we're going to execute this. And it gets a whole bunch of elements synthesized here. There are 981 rows. So this is as many as it does. However, we can... So you will get other elements forming. If we get rid of the neutrinos and just assume that isn't going to play a role, then it bangs that down, approaching half, 525. And you can see that there's a whole bunch of elements here being synthesized that we're not targeting, but there is gold in there. So the way we actually look for specific gold, so this isn't going to ever produce 100% gold. It's going to produce a range of elements. And I'm going to put and E4 in AU. And this will force us to look at the reactions that produce gold. Okay? And there we go. Without the neutrinos, there's just a few. And the element isotopes that you have of lead is 204, 206, 207, 208. So these are yielding quite a lot of energy. Okay? And this is basically what I did back 6 years ago today. What I didn't do is something that comes out of what is spoken about by John Bockris, because what they found is they actually produced platinum, and it was a radioactive platinum. So if we look at this, PT, I think it's 197. Is it going to do it there? Or no. I'll find it like this. Is it going to find it like that? I don't know where it is. Maybe I need to put platinum in. Okay. Yeah, so they're finding the platinum signal here. And essentially it found this, produced this radioactive platinum that decayed after a short period of time. So they have to leave it for 3 days for it to decay to gold. I'm going to type in the word decay probably. Okay. This lifetime of this decay corresponded to an isotope of platinum, and we shall see below that there is some independent verification of the existence of this intermediate. Now, so this is the working out what the half-life is, and they're saying that it's some isotope of platinum that then decays. Now, the interesting thing about the Parkhomov reaction tables, they don't do platinum. However, if I type in here platinum as a target, you'll see that there is similarly a number of elements that are synthesized here of platinum. The top ones, isotopes of platinum, and you've got like 204, 206, 207, 208. But you'll see that these are all about 32, 34, 34, 35 mega electron volts. So it's actually more likely in this system than the gold, because even the most energetic gold is this one. So if that's what happened, then it's actually producing a short-lived radioactive isotope that then decays back down, and that might be what we expect. Okay, so then I want to come to where am I going with this? For those people that haven't actually visualized what this might look like, this is a GIF I made from a video from Martin Lammers of a slowed down ultrasonic experiment in water. And you can see these central cores of these structures with the rotating material around them. Okay? So you can imagine that something similar might be going on in the cavitation system, and that is condensing matter into this core. Right. Now, there's one thing we haven't explained on this ring. What do you think it is? What do you think we are missing on this ring? Yeah, we have the calcium oxide, we have the fire, and we have the lead. And we can imagine that the fire is melting the lead in the calcium oxide, in the presence of the calcium oxide. But what are we missing? Yeah, okay, so how do we get to the eyes? How do we get to the eyes? Well, in the case of Bockris, yes, the crown. Yes, what is the crown telling you? Very good. What is the crown? Vanilla Isis says symmetry. The sun and the moon is the two circles, yes. Where the magic happens in the crown. No? Yes, Gordon, well done. Resonant frequency. And I've already given you the clue here. And like when I realized this last night, I thought, how could I not see this before? So I'm going to give you a bunch of examples where I've laid this out in the past. The first probably should give credit to the Supreme Court built by, in the UK, J.S. Gibson between 1906 and 1913. And here you can see that the Supreme Court has full-on balance. It's weighing balance. It's yin and yang. And on one of either the yin or the yang, you have a yin and yang. And in either the yin or the yang of the yin and the yang, or in a yin and yang, you have a yin and a yang. So it has a wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And it's exactly and precisely the correct geometry, right? The other thing is that it has this in the window opening. And this is when I'm going to reveal to you the gift that was brought to me by Yin Gazda. And she didn't mention the box, and I don't know whether, do you know anything about the box? Or was it just a nice box? It was just a nice box. Well, I can tell you there's a more interesting thing with this box. It has 4 quadrants. And what it has over here is it has a 4 quadrant around that. And these are inflows with a vortex, a vortex, a vortex, a vortex going into this vortex. So this is a ring made of rings, 4 rings, and this makes the ring that comes in and out here. So the box itself is representing the wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And did the carver know that? And it's even got the matter going into the center here in these structures. Did the carver know that? I don't know. Okay? So what did she give me in this box? Other than a beautiful fabric here, with our interwoven structures here, of course. She gave me a Vajra. A Vajra. Okay? This is the ball lightning. This is the core of the ball lightning. Okay? The Vajra. Okay? So, that is what you are seeing on these window frames on the Supreme Court. I can also say in this Masonic building, built in 1789 in Brighton, in their center, their entrance doorway, you also have the Zeus Thunderbolt or the Zeus Vajra here, in between the two structures here. And that is the most powerful vector that comes down from that central point, the Christ center down. Absolutely precise. Okay? This is the Vajra, but this is Zeus's Vajra from 234 BC. Okay? You can see how similar that is. Yeah? To Indra. Look at that. And of course, you have the representation here in the 1733 Grand Masonic Lodge just down the road from the White House in the New Jerusalem of America, with your swastika and salvastika, the sun and the moon of the building, with the 33 rays representing the 33 rites of passage, or in the Buddhist faith being a reformation of the Hindu faith, where this comes from. The Buddhist faith has 33 songs to access the 33 heavens, and they are 33 rites of passage. So you can trace the 33 all the way back to Hinduism. Okay? And we have the sun and the moon and the center. Okay? All right. So that is what we have going on. And then I'm going to show you this. This was, again, from a presentation I gave on the 28th of September 2022.
So this system here is a piezo transducer, ultrasonic horn, a flat hard plate. It's in air, and there's an organic compound in there. I won't go into it, it'll be in the paper. And it organizes on the node, but note, there is a separation to two spots around the node. That is what's happening in the reactor.
So there we have it. And it's in the Supreme Court, as I had showed before. Above the window, you have this. And I explained very precisely that you have a standing wave here, and at the standing wave standing point, this is where the torus is produced. The torus is produced. Okay? And so if we look at the other, where is it? No, not there. Not there. Oh dear, I've lost it now. Did I get rid of that? Give me a second. I need to go back to... Okay, it's the Fulcanelli. So in the case of the Fulcanelli ring here, we have a lambda and a half. And in this one, which is another similar structure with your sun and your moon and your triangle, so forth, you have your two hard sides and your circle in the center. So this is much closer to the United Kingdom's Supreme Court, okay, with your circle in the center. It's not as well spelt out as the Fulcanelli ring. And just to make it very, very clear, I will show you here the tapestry that I've had it hanging in my room basically since I moved to the Czech Republic. And this is the one on the Supreme Court, producing your two spots either side. And this is the standing wave modes with your 2 spots producing your rings in your Fulcanelli ring. Yeah, and here we go. You can see that essentially the top one here producing the 2 spots is this one. Yeah, so that's the point where it doesn't really move, and it will create that structure. And here is the one on the Fulcanelli ring. Okay, so that essentially explains what you've got here.
So this system here is a piezo transducer, ultrasonic horn, a flat hard plate. It's in air, and there's an organic compound in there. I won't go into it, it'll be in the paper. And it organizes on the node, but note, there is a separation to 2 spots around the node. That is what's happening in the reactor.
Okay, so what you will notice here is there isn't actually a spot like directly on the surface here. It's kind of just the first bit down here and so on. So you do get one on the just on the base here. But anyway, that's kind of what you've got to imagine you want in your experiment. This is what we have in our ultra experiment. And we have basically this, the sonotrode, the PZT is below the metal and the bottom, and then we have a piece of polycarbonate, and just below that we have the aluminium foil, and the aluminium foil moves into a position so that it rapidly forms these yin-yang structures at any resonant node, and it's either side of the standing wave node. So you can imagine that these are, you've got your curves going like this, and they're cutting through that, and they're cutting through that, and they're cutting through that. And then as it goes the other phase, it's cutting through that, and it's cutting through that, and it's cutting through that. Yes? And so that's how you get this structure. Okay? And as I said, it was all on the Supreme Court. Absolutely every aspect you needed to do the God's Toolbox is presented in perfect detail. It has the perfect representation of the thunderbolt here, the Vajra, okay, the bit between, it has the overall structure there, and it has how you initiate these things using standing waves to lead to the tours, okay? And the Masons have absolutely nailed it here. And that is essentially it. The last thing I'll have to say is, what is the best kind of thing to put this in? Well, I would argue that it is actually in this symbol, which is essentially the same as the wind hex. It's the same structure. So what you would do is you would create your standing waves up here. This would maybe be an iron vessel. You would want iron because it doesn't really want to transmute, okay? And then you would put in here your lead, and probably at the bottom, you would put your powdered calcium oxide. And I think that's well represented by the Fulcanelli ring. You put your calcium oxide down here. You have your lead. You make your lead molten. You don't really want to use induction heating, in my view, because the induction heating will produce eddy currents. But you want these things to form naturally, although it could be tried, let's say. It could be tried. You'd ideally want to get it over 1,000 degrees so you can start producing neutrinos, although that might not be necessary. What is more necessary is to produce your standing waves. And at the node here and the node here, that is the center point of the yang and the yin. And so that would lead to your matter synthesis. And we know that this works. We know this works and how it works precisely because of this one image. This one image 100% shows you that let's put them on there, the wheels within the wheels make the overall wheel in which you are going to be synthesizing your matter. And the wheel within a wheel within a wheel allows for the disassembly of matter on the upper level in, I guess this is a yang state. So a yang structure will absorb matter and put it into yin. So that is just consuming, or you could, whatever. It's going to be consuming matter, okay? And that is essentially it. Right there is everything you need to know to synthesize gold. Now, Of course, it's not going to be making 100% gold. But if you look at the reaction tables, as I showed you earlier, if we go to them, the sister element, if you're producing the gold here, is vanadium. And that would be probably lighter than the lead, so it would float on top. And the gold would sink, or maybe not sink. But anyway, the gold has a much higher melting point than the lead. So you could separate it out using thermal methods. And I think that's one of the approaches that was used by Bockris, John Bockris. And there could be chemical methods as well to separate out other elements that are synthesized. If it's platinum, the platinum then decays to gold, so the same story there. So you'd separate it out using normal metallic separation methods, chemical separation methods, but you would synthesize it using calcium oxide, heat, fire, that's the alchemical symbol for fire, and lead. Not the devil, not Satan, right? Just lead, and sound waves, standing waves, in a device that essentially looks like a wind hex. Do you have any questions? Bob, do you think the wavelength on the ring is sized intentionally as well, not just 1.5 lambda is meant to match? I think this is right, but if you go to our experiment ultra here, as long as you've got a frequency in a chamber, there will be resonant nodes here. And if they are resonant nodes, they will always build structures that are going to build up to the strength required. It might mean you might need to use a, how should we put this? A frequency bearing in mind the speed of sound through the molten lead, modified for the presence of calcium oxide. Okay, so that might be important. Do you have a box section on the top, or just a circular section, or an ovoid section? I don't know, but the wind hex is circular. I think that's probably fine. You would definitely want to have the wind hex structure to be the structure it actually is, which is kind of this kind of structure, because you want your destruction of your lead and your capture of your lead and your calcium oxide to be here, but down the side you want possibly your synthesized elements to fall or to be getting out of the way. So once the element's synthesized, you want it to kind of be getting out of the way, right? Now, there was some researchers in Italy that used an aluminium sonotrode, Cardone et al. You can go and look at them up on lenacana.org. And they used sound into mercury, and they synthesized a range of elements that were fairly reasonably predicted. And the most abundant element was predicted by the same theory that I'm using to predict these elements, most likely. And essentially, they also did some experiments with sound even on metal, and they ended up by having transmutation at spots. So I believe because you've got a fluid in there, when the element is a different melting point, for instance, gold or platinum, if that's synthesized and it comes out of these structures because they break up, then it's not going to be melting because the melting point of platinum's like 1,700 or whatever it is, and gold is much higher than lead. So let's look at the melting points of gold. So if you go to Philip Power's wonderfully programmed system here, and you go to show element data, okay, we can go down to AU. So where's 79? 79, there you go. And you can see that its melting point is 1,337. And we can see that the melting point of platinum here is 2041, okay? Whereas lead is just 600 degrees centigrade, okay? So you can comfortably synthesize platinum isotope, even the radioactive one, and it decays. Oh, thank you, Vanilla Isis, for the coffee. That's great. I've been needing a lot of that recently. You can comfortably make the platinum and the gold, and their melting point is so far higher than the melting point of the lead here. I would suggest doing this in an iron body, and then because it's a funnel shape, yeah, the funnel shape, it's easy when it's in a molten state to take it out, and then you could use other methods for, extracting out the heavy metals, the precious metals, and then you would recycle the lead into the process and do it over and over again. So bearing in mind, Bokris et al. Were able to synthesize with one bang, one slap of that Tibetan singing bowl. They were able to synthesize the elements, okay? Whereas what I'm suggesting is you have a resonant phenomenon going on in there. And if you look at the work of Roger Stringham using ultrasound in water, he found that he typically was using 20-ish kilohertz to start with, then he went to 43 kilohertz like our ultra experiments. And when he started working later, and also with Tom Claytor, formerly of Las Alamos National Laboratory, they then started using 1.7 megahertz. And what you get is you get the same resonant nodes. Of course, he didn't identify the particular structure, but what he did identify is you still get transmutation, but you have more transmutation points when you are using a higher frequency. What I would argue against is having a frequency in the fluid. That means your standing waves are too close together to give enough space for each of the structures to form, okay? You don't want it so that the standing waves are completely overlapping with each other, okay? So you want some a little bit of clear space between the material, the structures. What I mean by that, let me just show you in the Photoshop here. What I'm saying is that your standing wave should leave enough space so that at least on the apple level, there is some distance, a little bit of distance between one standing wave and the next, okay, to produce the overall effect. Ultimately, it's a basic suck it or see. The problem with piezo drivers and other piezoelectric, not just PZT, but also barium titanate and these things, they're often fixed to a certain frequency. So what I would suggest is using magnetostrictive oscillators. That is to say, you have a piece of iron in a solenoid, and depending on the frequency you pulse into the solenoid, makes the iron go longer or shorter, okay? So you can actually change the frequency. So this will allow you to tune so that you end up with resonance. And what I would imagine you would see, if you got it right, is exactly what you see in the video that I shared with you earlier. And I'm just going to share with you again here. This is kind of what you want to do. Okay. So essentially what you would like to do is you could set up your wind hex type device, yeah, and you would have your actuators made from iron, and you would or something that was very good in magnetostriction. Go and look up magnetostriction. And with your solenoid, you could then vary the frequency until you got a lot of activity on the top of your molten metal, okay? And I would have some sort of screen to protect everything when you're doing this experiment. Right. It's going to be hot metal. It's going to be lead. Do not do this at home, kids, if you don't know what you're doing. 1. 2. This is my best guess, but it's, I believe, a pretty darn good shot at this. Fulcanelli was not messing around. The statement is that he made gold. Okay? It's not like he's saying he didn't. He's saying that was gold. Okay? That he made this ring with. This ring is not guesswork. You could say it was just a man making a pretty pattern, but we can see from this structure that nature has produced, which is 100% certainly got the wheel within the wheel within the wheel. Okay? So these wheels here go into this wheel. You can literally see that they've come out of these N2s, both of them, the shadow one and the one that's actually physically there. Both of them have come out of this exploded N-1 wheel. And these N-1 wheels have come out of the N-Tor. Okay? 100% certainly, this is the structure. It produced this cavity here. Okay? And we have shown already that it synthesizes heavier elements. In this case, silver from copper. I reckon that if you ran this long enough, you would get gold. We have synthesized and observed gold. Not deliberately synthesized, but we have observed gold in other experiments, like the nickel exposed to in Suhas Raukar's experiment, the nickel foil. We observed gold in that. And so it's not a unique thing. And that this structure clearly is very, very similar to Fulcanelli's thing. This is 2 hard boundaries with a standing wave in between, and it's showing that this produces the 2 tors. It's, in my mind, extremely, extremely clear. Now, the idea, you could use mercury, but that's super toxic and difficult to get rid of, to get. But actually, finding calcium oxide, you can make it. We made it by, you just burn calcium carbonate. You can actually go and get shells off the beach, right? If you go in Kerala, they take up these little mollusks from the backwaters there, and they scrape out the flesh, and then they clean them off, and then they put them in these kilns, and they produce calcium carbonate that goes into the generic pills that you buy from India. It's most of the white mass of a pill that you consume is former shellfish. Now, if you crush and heat the shellfish shells up to a high temperature, that will produce the quicklime. Okay, but you can actually just buy it as a reagent if you wish to do that. And lead, you just go to the hardware store. So you might just be able to do fine marble and lead from the hardware store. A suitable iron structure. I think the area that can be made best is the means by which you can have a variable input frequency. And this is what I would ask people to do. Share forward. You know, I think my wife said at the start of this stream, you know, could you just keep this for ourselves for 2 years and then publish it? And I said, no, Kim, I can't. I said, sorry. I said, this hasn't come to me for me to keep on to it. We're past that. We want to start the new golden age. And this is a way that we can demonstrate to the world, potentially, that transmutation is real. From the point of view that, you know, there's a good incentive, at least initially, to do this. And my son was quite bright. He says, if you tell everyone the value of gold's going to go to nothing, it's going to be worthless. I said, not true. It will still take skill and effort to do this, and the gold will always be useful. It's very useful technologically speaking, and so are elements like platinum, technologically speaking, if you're synthesizing those, and some of the other metals that get synthesized in this process. And then once it's mastered, you can go and choose your elements to target particular other elements, okay? And so, yeah, sorry guys, but no, this is for everyone. That is the commitment I made to you, And that is what I hope you can see that I have delivered here. Okay. All right, so on the terms of how this, so the other thing is, if I'm going to offer right now, you're going to laugh, $2,000, crisp dollars, to someone that provides the first ounce of synthesized gold. Of course, it has to come to Brno, and I can assay it on my street. There's a place where I can assay it. They've got a spectrometer, and they will also do chemical assaying, and they'll literally hand the cash over at around the spot price. Okay, so that's an offer I'm putting out there. For those people that are not good at this and fail at this, and it doesn't work, I'm not paying your bills, all right? I haven't got the money. So yeah, basically, I think it could be a bit of fun. And what I would like people to do, as I said earlier, is share forward. It's share forward. But I think it's done. I think it's been about 5,000 years coming. I think people, my son literally went, my precious gold, like this. And I'm saying, Jack, that's the problem. Everyone's kept the secret to themselves that's ever discovered it, right? There's literally, Fulcanelli didn't even disclose his name. That Fulcanelli is not a real name. And he's supposed to be one of the last, if not the last adept that was able to transmute lead into gold. Well, I think we're pretty close to understanding how we can do this. So Diantai Station says, how can we organize together to get this tech out in mass? Not only to create gold, but heavier elements in general, also purify water. Okay. I don't know if anyone's worked out that an ounce of gold is actually worth just over $2,000, but anyway, it might not be soon. I haven't looked at it. So actually, you know what happened here is I was running out of time, and I thought I needed to. I just felt I needed to have another look at the sample, and so I did a lot more quick at lookings. And when I saw this, it kind of rang true to me that it was an important structure, and I mentally did it in my head. When I actually took the image, I just saw these two spots, the overall basic shape and the hole, and I thought that would align up mentally with this structure. At the time, I hadn't clocked the subtors here, and I hadn't clocked the subtors here. But in this image, complete with the vertical beams coming out here, you literally have every key component of how this process works. And it is 100% real. It's surreal. It's totally surreal. But it's there. It's just there. And from very simple beginnings of studying experiments provided by people like Neil Crichton Gold, and the experiments we did with Suhas Ralkar, and the experiments we did with Dr. Roy Shinamaza, and observing the experiments that were done by Dr. Takaaki Matsumoto, these people that actually looked at what nature was doing, not making up some theory in their head, just looking at what nature was doing and going, that's what it's done. Now, what does it mean? We were able to derive this structure, and the structure is the pattern that drives the universe. And so if it drives the universe, it can undrive the universe. And there we go. It is the gods, little g, toolbox. And we are literally at the dawn of an old age. And it is going to be, if we let it be and we make it be, it's going to be the new golden age. And I think we're still in tribulations right now, but I think we should get through this, and it's not a secret anymore. And we can not require, I believe, damaging vast swathes of the earth to get a little bit of particular types of elements to put into smartphones or to put into batteries and control systems for electric cars and so forth. We can actually use a scientific process that works with nature in exactly the way it wants to work, not us imposing our will on it, but you're working with nature. Okay? And I think it's a beautiful thing. So Joe Vellecci says, make a replicator. All things will come to pass. If it's possible, it'll be done. So it says, wouldn't this confirm the electric universe theory? Certainly it confirms that you don't need a supernova, you don't need a big bang to create all the elements that we live with and use, technologically speaking. So again, I want to thank Bo Sinclair for his donation, and to Vanilla Isis for his donation, and Diantai Station for that donation. So thank you very much. I will be fully awake with coffee next week. Okay, I'm just going to see if you've got any questions. If you've got any questions, throw them into the chat. I mean, what a time to be alive. I mean, really, honestly, what a time to be alive. I was saying to my mum, you know, on the weekend, I said, oh, Mum, like, I just feel like the luckiest person in the world ever. It's just such a deep, deep honor. And I'm just fed up of secrets, and mostly I'm fed up of people killing people. My dad used to say money is the root of all evil, and let's face it, money is made of copper, zinc not so much, but real money is copper, silver, and gold. And these are the elements that seem to be able to be synthesized by this process, particularly the most precious ones. Some to a degree, maybe platinum and other platinum group metals, but yeah. And so this is not investment advice, but if people were to make a lot of gold quite easily, then what would that do to other forms of trade? You know, what would you expect to be the biggest winner out of that? I'll let you answer that. I've got an idea, but I'll let you answer that. I think this side up has got a clue, yes. So do you have any particular order to watch your videos in to fully understand the concepts and ideas? So Daniel Stott, very simply, go back to the first O-Day video and just follow them through to the end. You know, this video is really a capstone, and it shows that very real transmutation is possible. The mechanism is extremely precise. It always does the same thing. It's not you have to force it. It wants to do it more than anything. It's just you've done something wrong that's gotten in its way. Okay, and then you need to feed it what it needs, both in terms of the form of the energy and so forth. But yeah, follow O-Day from the beginning. Other presentations I'd recommend you see are the monopole clutch, ultra. The experiment that I just showed in here, that video, and the presentation I gave in Taiwan on the 13th of December last year, called Working with Nature. And that is what we are trying to do here. And who would have thought that after showing in that presentation Working with Nature, that I would expect that Benjamin Huang's system works on this principle to find absolutely, totally conclusive evidence that it is working on this system, and that if transmutation is occurring anywhere, it has to be working in this way, in my view, although I may be wrong. So Neanderthal says, Bob, what determines which stage of the Evo collapse is left visible on the sample? Well, these things are basically alive. They are born, they grow, they self-organize, they cluster, they consume matter, they expel matter and energy. They consume energy and matter, kind of same thing, but in different forms. They expel matter and energy in different forms. Then at some point, they either don't get one or enough of the other, or they become unstable and they die. They are and they have rules. They can't occupy the same space-time as a whole cluster. They need often space between them. They will go and seek out the low-hanging fruit. They will go where the pickings are good. So they act like living organisms. And Ken Shoulders said essentially that in all meaningful senses, they act like living organisms. And I would 100% agree. These probably, you could argue, are the Shamir of Solomon. They are able to go and do work for you. And because they have a toroidal moment, and because we have a toroidal moment, in my view, from our brain, we will be able to influence these things consciously. And the Dogon people that fled from the bad approaches to the old ways being conducted in Egypt, they still believe that some of the symbols of the hieroglyphs, they actually mean conscious control of matter. And I think that is we're going to find out that that is true. There will be an ability to create these things. And maybe if, for instance, this is how I look potentially that John Hutchison may have played a role in his systems, that these things come out of your fingers. You know that because if you get a lot of static charge, you have a spark coming out. And I think that this is the basis for faith healing, laying on of hands. You know, people that have laid on hands in the past, they will be creating these things that are consciously entangled with themselves, and then they can ask to do a particular work in a person, but they could ask to do a particular work in a non, so-called living structure, but other matter. And it would also be the method by which, when eventually this will come to pass, there are propulsion devices that use this principle. They will also be able to be controlled consciously. It just stands to reason, and it's all completely logical and scientific. There's no woo-woo. It's I kind of miss the days when I could say a little bit of crazy. I mean, it might sound crazy to a lot of people, but to me, it's just how it is now. So there we go. Of course, I might be wrong. So Easy says, I don't want to be bleak, but I hope we survive this new age. You know what? What's happening right now is they're saying too much carbon dioxide in the atmosphere. Well, we can use this technology to get rid of it. So that's not a problem anymore. Not enough nitrogen. And if we use oil, we won't have oil. So no, that problem's solved. We're damaging the planet. So, we've got to leave these areas. Essentially, if you think about what this technology could deliver, obviously you can see it can destroy things as well. And that's basically, in my view, in 2017, that was what they've done with it, because the easiest thing is to make things fall apart. But if you're using it then with positive intent, and I think that's what most people actually in the world, they just want to have a good time, they want to chill out, they want to procreate, and that's basically it. They just want to have a nice life, and don't do unto others what you don't want done to yourself, basically, that kind of thing. You don't want to go to the effort of being so horrible to someone else. Typically, people only do that when they can't eat, or they've got nowhere to live, or they can't drink. So they're forced into a situation where they have to take drastic measures just to survive, right? So this technology has the potential to deal with the energy problem, any form of scarcity, because once you're able to produce energy, you can produce large amounts of concrete, you can produce large amounts of photons, you can produce large amounts of potable water, and these things would enable emission-free or even potentially emission-negative vertical growing farms, highly efficient production for vegetable matter. And, there isn't a problem too big. And yeah, so it's the God's toolbox with a little g. Yes, I don't believe we will need to mine so many scarce materials. You'd need feedstock, but lead is actually quite abundant in the crust. And you've got to ask yourself why. Well, it's also one of the most abundant elements synthesized in Lena. Why? Because if you go any heavier than lead, it typically automatically, if you've got lighter elements, pulls it back down to lead, because they're all unstable. So it'll force their decay back down to lead. So it's kind of the end of the road. So I think that's what's happened in nature. That's why you have so much lead in the ground. And using the lead and giving it lighter elements and working with this technology and working in the way that it wants to work, we can synthesize useful technological metals. So Alchemy is talking about Dan Winters. I expect to be talking to him tomorrow. Thank you very much, Daz. That's very kind of you. Thank you also again to Above All Things here. It's really helps out. Randall says, do we have any idea of the frequencies of the 1 Tor, 2 Tor, 3 Tor? You know what? You just suck it and see. Like I say, if you have a magnetostrictive oscillator and you have your fluid volume, this case lead at 600 degrees, yeah, so don't get close to it. Like I say, not for school kids, okay? The ultra experiment, that's for school children, okay? They can do that. They can see the basic principle. And that will also create new elements. And we have shown that it produces silver, okay? So you can produce silver safely in the classroom from, preschool and upwards. But you can still drown in a few inches of water. So, it does have risks. I guess people could... Anyway, I don't want to think about that. Just play safe, kids. Bob, so William Schwantz says, is this caused by current, pressure, electric, or some combination? It's to do with the spin inherent in all matter. And when you get these standing waves, as you see on a little Fulcanelli crown here, that helps the self-organization process. And in the case of a polar, if you've got it in a plasma or a charge-separated material, like you have in... ideally in a charge-separated wind hex, or you have it in the thunderstorm generator, or you have it in a GEAT, that's one thing. But in water, it's already a polar molecule. And when water interacts with a metal, which is hydrophilic, which metals are typically, then it also has a sea of electrons on the surface. So it actually changes, you get easy water. And so you actually end up with something that is effectively polarized to being charge separated. And when that ends up going into these spinning vortices, they then produce a current loop, and that then starts to instantly or very quickly self-organize the matter. So it is a process that proceeds very quickly. Ken Shoulder says electronic structures at electronic speeds, and it also almost does not matter the underlying phenomena, because it just does it, and it's like if it's not doing it, it's because you worked hard to make sure it doesn't do it. Yeah, and so the overall structure, which is virtually here, okay, and the overall structure has died and gone away, whatever that was. That has gone, but it's left our n-1 torus here, and one of the n-1 torus has very clearly given birth. So what I actually want to do is go on to the SEM later in the week, and I'm going to do much, much higher quality images. So these are typically 1,000 pixels across. On the SEM in Prague, I might be able to get this image at 64 times the resolution. By that I mean 8,000 by 8,000 pixels. And in that case, you'll be able to print this at incredible poster size. By looking at particular features on this sample. And I have to thank Bin Zhen Huang for, I had this meal with him. I said, Bin, I'm really going to need samples of your reactors and any other stuff. So thank you to Bin Zhen Huang for providing these samples to me, because it's revealed all of the conclusive evidence to just put the cherry on the top of this whole process. So, and everything, the whole journey's worked in exactly the way it needed to work, and it's just so weird. It's just totally weird. All right. So with Yin in the room here, I know she doesn't want to put a face on camera, but just so I'm not mad, can you wave your hand in front of my face? I'm going to put up both my hands here. What for? just to show I'm not pretending I'm mad here. So this is Yin Gazda. There you go. That's the only look you're going to get. She's been patiently sitting in the room here behind me. So yeah, she brought me from the spirit realm, the Vrajra, and I think it's just it's amazing. It's amazing that this comes at this time. Mother Nature, yes, from Mother Nature. Yes, yeah. So William Schwant says, do you think guys think Fulcanelli's ring was made of gold he created? It is claimed that the ring was made from synthesized gold, and given the fact that he has the calcium oxide here and he has the lead here, then and the sound and the heat, it's almost certain, because he's precisely showing what you would need to do. As I said, Cardone has already shown that in liquid mercury, using sound, you can synthesize a range of elements. Okay, so all you're doing is you're producing a liquid metal, and in this one, you're producing it using the water as the medium. Corky says, Rare Condition says, wielder of the Rajra. Yeah. It's a tool. It's a tool. And like any tool, it can be used for good or for evil. And I think you guys have got the right spirit out there. You're certainly advantaged. You're lucky to have stuck with this for these last 11 years. I know there's some people out there like Artifact who have been following the project since we were, just coming in. It's been a long road, but really a short road considering, the last person that was able to synthesize gold apparently was this guy. and that was 102 years ago, right? Other than the guy that was working with John Bokras, who says, or he did in the video that you can see on my Steemit blog, yeah, we're making precious metals, but you're not allowed to know it because we're doing it with the government. Artifact, you're welcome. I literally, I call this, I'll show you actually. You said, have we seen Edward Munch the Scream? I'll actually show you what I call the directory here for this presentation. Well, okay. Do I call it? Where is it? Where is it? Where is it? Okay, let me see if I can find it. I actually call this image the Scream. It makes sense to me. There we go. Right, there we go. There we go. I don't know if you can see it, but there, the directory is called the Scream. and the title frame for the video is called the video here is called the Scream, which I shared on my blog. This is called the Scream. Yes, it looks like Edward Munch's The Scream, and I call basically I call this the Scream. This is the, oh god, I've got to do it. This is the Scream stream. All right, there, did it. I amuse myself. It's just as well. Yeah, possibly calcium hydroxide and lead hydroxide in water might work. I'm sorry, Kelly McRaven, because we had a lot of technical problems at the beginning. I might actually edit the beginning of this because it was a total mess. So I'm sorry about the problems at the beginning. There was really terrible problems with data consistency, but we got there. And essentially, Kelly, it's very simple. Because my son asked me a question, and I'll just do a quick review here. So this was Ode Gold, or Ode Ra, or Ode Sol. I believe the sun works in the same way, so why not? Anyway, Ode Gold. And it was all about this image, the Scream. And I talked about the fact that my wife's name is Kim, which means gold, and the SEM of the Scream was taken on Alan Goldwater's SEM, which this is. This is the sample tray in Alan Goldwater's SEM, where I have my elephant-shaped nugget that formed our wedding rings, which are here, which has the ring spot in the center. It actually has the Ra symbol in the middle, and it also has the fractal toroidal structure on it. I'd have been really upset if this didn't turn out to be true. Anyway, so my beautiful wife there, 11th of May 2013, yes, that long ago, nearly 11 years ago, this was recorded, and she demonstrated for me, along with Pubu here, in this place in Kerala in India, the two methods by which you can get these things triggered, in my view, back then in the 11th of May 2013. And we'll play that for you. So what you're seeing here is some Tibetan singing bowls. These are essentially resonant systems. And I want to use these to demonstrate something to everyone about what we need to do in our experiments moving forward. Hi, so I'm here with Pubu, who's from Tibet, and Kim, who's from Vietnam, and they're both from Buddhist countries, and in their hands they have two Tibetan singing bowls. Now they're a bit like some of our experiments. They're just sitting there being very stable, doing nothing, whether we heat them up or cool them down. but they're essentially a resonant system that needs some stimulation. And a lot of the scientists are reporting you need to either stimulate them with lasers or with thermal shock or pressure shock or radio frequency stimulation, something like this. And just to simplify this, I'm going to ask them to do 2 different ways to stimulate these singing bowls. And my beautiful partner there, Kim, who's going to give birth at the end of the month with our first child, is going to show the first way. Okay, so what she did there was gave it a good hard shock, and the bowl sang at its resonant frequency to dissipate that energy. And I'm going to ask Pubu to do the second method. So what she's doing there is she's got a little gamel type thing, and it has, whoa, listen to that. It has some suede on there, and as the friction sort of at the right speed of stimulation, the pressure is released, it's vibrating that bowl at its resonant frequency and allowing it to sing. So I'm just going to take a closer look at that. That's what we want our experiments to do. Now we can either slightly, with a little bit of energy, cause it to resonate, or, Kim will demonstrate again, we can give it a good hard shock. Give it a good hard shock, Kim. Go on.
This?
Hard shock. Okay, now just to show that it can be stimulated the other way, Kim's not done this before, so let's see if you can get it. Now you see what's happening there is she isn't moving it round at the right frequency. Now she is. So you can try and stimulate it. If you get it wrong, you don't see anything. If you get it right, and she's starting to get it right there. So that's basically what we need to do. We need to find some way of stimulating these otherwise stable but resonant systems. Thank you very much, Kim. So then I showed this, and if you can imagine, this is our lead in our vessel, and we're going to vibrate it. In other presentations, I showed how actual vortex solitons are built, and that's what causes this water to jump out. And that leads to these yin-yang structures, exactly and precisely the yin-yang structures. And this leads to what Kladoff calls micro black holes, and what Ken Shoulders calls micro black holes. And the signature of these things, in my view, are these iron-rich crenellated spheres that are hollow but appear to have material that is transmuted inside them, as Mikhail Solin said in his 1992 patent. And so it's born out of there, and it produces excess heat. You get both addition, division, and destruction of nuclei. And the longer you leave it, the more elements you get. So literally, you will have a recipe that where you put the lead in, you put the calcium oxide in, you heat it up to a temperature, because remember, the temperature will vary the frequency, the resonant frequency. It'll also vary, it is actually a vibration itself. It's a phonon vibration. So it will assist potentially with the process. So there will be a particular temperature where it's very, very good. And bearing in mind that these structures actually, if they are synthesizing heavier elements, they themselves will produce extra heat, one would imagine, if they're making a heavier element, if it's not balanced by some least action process where there's some element synthesis that requires energy in balance to some element that generates energy rather. But if you've got a net generation of energy, that's going to change the resonant phenomena in there, and you have to bear these things in mind. You'll then bake it for a period of time, shut it down, and then look to mechanically, chemically, or thermally extract the various elements that your target elements. Okay. So it's all based on this magnetohydrodynamic structure, and we showed very precisely and exactly that it destroys in this lower area, which is the same area as in the Great Pyramid of Egypt. And in fact, there is literally a map of the Great Pyramid of Egypt on the back of this brass plate, the internal structure. And Tesla knew about this, and that's why he has this truncated Vesica Pisces and this vortex and anti-vortex, one behind the other and one slightly above the other, precisely. And that is also why you can see the magnetohydrodynamic structure the hydrodynamic structure in here. And I've got these Tesla logo in there. Of course, the Ukonavasara, very precisely in exactly the correct shape. And the destruction zone down here. And so basically this solution came because my son asked me a question about the weight of dinosaurs. And I was explaining that the Earth was smaller, therefore it weighed less. So you can see my daughter here on this interactive exhibit weighs 29 kilograms on Earth, 5 kilograms on the moon. And if she was to go and visit the sun in her exotic vacuum object shield, she would weigh 819 kilograms if she was taken out of the shield, and I wouldn't advise it. But that's not as bad as weighing 3 million tons on PSR B1257 plus 12. Yeah, okay, so not 1 gram on Halley's Comet. So good luck with staying on that. So this is actually showing what you would weigh on these different gravitational bodies. But there was another exhibit where you could literally lift up a weight that was simulating what the things would weigh on different locations. And on Mars, obviously with the male symbol, men are from Mars and women are from Venus. You can see where this kind of comes from. I was obviously aware of these associations. I was not aware of this particular shape because where I had looked at these things was on a website that it was the Royal Chemistry Society's website, and actually it didn't have Saturn on there. It didn't have that. I was only looking at the elements, and also it didn't have this lead. Okay, and it turns out actually, you know, when I was looking at that symbol and found out it's an alchemical symbol here, that actually that symbol is the symbol for lead. So that implies that Fulcanelli's ring here is lead. It uses lead in there. And that got me thinking the rest of the symbols must be something to do with alchemy. So I thought I recognized that because that is actually the symbol of the MFMP's logo, which is a triangle that shape with a flame inside it trapped. Okay, so that is the hidden energy within matter. That came to me in a vision on a plane coming back from India, in fact, and that became the project's logo. I sketched it on the plane, yeah. So the triangle here is actual fire. So with Fulcanelli's ring, we're using fire, likely to melt lead. And then I looked, well, what is this symbol down here? So I looked around and I found that if you rotated the symbol here for quicklime calcium oxide, then that would be that symbol there. And that's interesting because way back 6 years ago today, when I was writing this blog, I was showing this work of John Bokros at Texas A&M, and in his summary here of his work, he showed that he used calcium oxide. I didn't really clock this at the time, but we had synthesized silver, for instance, using literally calcium oxide, and that was independently observed by the Central European Technology Integration Center, CITEC rather, up the road here from where I'm sitting right now. And so we know calcium oxide does the business. They had it in there, so it stands to reason that Fulcanelli's recipe was correct. And the last piece in the puzzle comes from the crown here, And I'd already shown that that was on the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, that the node on a standing wave produces the torus, and that fractal versions of this lead to the production of the Vajra, and the Vajra, which they have on the window handles. And there's the Vajra there, in big form. Thank you to Mother Nature, who sent it via yin. And we end up with these little babies doing their business here. They end up producing these self-organizing toroidal structures.
So this system here is a piezo transducer, ultrasonic horn, a flat hard plate. It's in air, and there's an organic compound in there. Won't go into it, it'll be in the paper. And it organizes on the node, but note, there is a separation to 2 spots around the node. That is what's happening in the reactor.
Just to ram it home, as I was sitting at my desk looking for an image to show this process, above my desk in my house there is a tapestry which is from the desert region in Rajasthan in India, and it had literally the 2 structure here and the 3 structure as on Fulcanelli's ring, and essentially that's that one with a node here, where like it is on the UK Supreme Court, and this is this one which is under on Fulcanelli's ring, and that will produce your standing waves, and you get the 2 spots, as I showed you in the previous thing, appearing around the standing wave nodes, and it's these things that produce the yin-yang. And even in this video, you can see that one is very bright and one is dark. There is literally a sun and moon on these things. So there's no reason why this kind of experiment could not be conducted with a string and a bow and a piece of metal and some simple rotating mechanical device. You wouldn't need an ultrasound device. You could produce something that produced ultrasound but was a mechanical device. And so people could have seen these sun and moons with their own naked eye and deduced what was going on. And this is the feature that comes around. So it's not surprising that this would be part of Muslim traditional art there in the desert regions of India, northwest India. And so together with this incredible data from Benjamin Huang's DHX-2 reactor that produced excess heat and anomalous gases, we have the sacred geometry structure, and it's consuming material, as we have observed in so many other reaction and systems. And I've always argued that the weak point in the structure is where this Sothic triangle breaches the overall non-radiating boundary. And indeed, that is the point through which the substructures that were, in my view, in there have broken through. And they themselves have similarly, on at least one side, failed. And you've got the substructures coming out, except the one that came here has now disembedded itself from the overall structure here. And so you have, and I've put these, I've shrunk these at the golden ratio, by the way. So this is your N tor. These are N-1 tors, and these are N-2 tors. And that is your wheel within a wheel within a wheel. And that is the same as you see here on the Supreme Court. This is the wheel within the wheel within the wheel. Okay? And it's very clearly the yin-yang. This is the ichthos, the IHS, and this is the chiro. All of these symbols are the Christian church. Okay? And that is, in my view, Fulcanelli's mystery decoded and it is a gift to us in the new golden age, the new dawn of a golden age. Yes, Corky says, no more bullshit about alchemy. I totally agree. Yep. Harry says, I just don't understand how the Masons, the Hindus, or other esoterics knew about these structures. Well, it took me 5 years just looking at what nature did. I did have an advantage that I grew up mostly outside. I didn't have any smartphone screens to stare at. There was nothing on the television. There was only 3 useless channels. My parents never read me a book, and I'm thankful for that, because I got my enjoyment from looking at the real world and seeing what the real world had to offer on a second-by-second basis. You know, everything from how insects were doing what they were doing, how a seed was germinating, how it was going through the ground, how water played with light and light, you know, the melting of ice and animals interplaying with their environment, all those kind of things. And you know, when I first looked at this, I thought, oh my God, when I eventually come to talk about this thing at some point, people are literally going to accuse me of seeing faces in clouds. It's normally the put down, and I'm saying I am seeing a face because this is the structure that builds face. Yeah. I'm not saying throw away all your kids' books. I'm just saying that's what happened to me. I wasn't meant to be spending time looking at pages. My son is the second highest reader in the class. You know, I made a point of reading to him, not because I didn't get read to, it's because I wondered what would happen if I didn't get read to. Like, kind of, I guess it is because I didn't get read to. But he has no choice but to spend a lot of time outside with me as well. So Kelly McRaven says, so how can the community help you and others get Thor and Wind Hex devices out? I guess that the most important thing is to, I believe, you know, I have been certain about this since January 2017, right? I was willing to write 115 or whatever it was page presentation outline that I knew would take a minimum of 5 years to present the data and to get the messaging across, and in January 2018. The work has been done, at least to a point where I believe that people that go through that online material can know implicitly, that this is a real thing, and they can spend, if they wish, a little amount of money doing an ultra experiment and demonstrate the principle with very, very basic 3-year-old level skills. So there's almost zero excuse for pretending that you can't learn this. And then it comes down to messaging, getting the message out to more and more and more and more and more and more and more people, spreading the word. And like I say, for me, it is not really important whether they were keeping it a secret because they were keeping it a secret, or because it keeps itself a secret because it was unbelievable, because we're all taught these things are impossible, so therefore you're mad if you think it, so don't even bother thinking it, otherwise you're mad. Or like if you are, if they wanted to keep it for weapons, because they thought we couldn't be trusted with it. I don't know. Like, I saw a microcosm in my own family this morning when I told them, I think I've worked out how to turn lead into gold, right? I've not done it, but we've seen lead being synthesized. in many LENR experiments. So that's one thing. We have literally seen gold in experiments that I have analyzed. It's a small amount, but then there wasn't any understanding of what the process was in that little place where that small amount was synthesized. It was just there. In fact, I think there was also palladium as well. You can go and look at the videos of the analysis back in 2017. And so the fact that these elements are there, we know it can do it. Then the question is, how is it doing it? Well, I believe that we have completely decoded how it's doing it. You know, the minutiae, yeah, not so much, but at least the wheel within a wheel within a wheel, I think we can agree that that is a thing that people knew about, at least to some degree, even if it was just passed through verbal tradition from pre-cataclysmic times, and no one actually really knew what it was talking about. But as I said in my last stream, or the stream before, I think maybe, I do believe that this information is in the Vatican archives. That is in my summary slide for O-Day, which I've never published yet. And I don't think it matters anymore. I don't think it matters that they've been holding this precious. But like it was, I said to my family, I think I worked this out. Oh, can we not just keep this? And I said, no, we can't. We can't. It's not for us. It's for everyone. I think the cataclysm is probably around about 11,700 years ago, sometime around then. Elliot, in your opinion, would finding out how to create one... No, if you create one large Evo, you just have your material disappear. It'll just be converted into field forms of matter. I think it's much better to have a lots of small structures that are spaced apart, so they've got plenty of room to breathe, and to, you know, not force them too hard, right? But then these things will come out with the wash, in the wash, as it were. Lithnic, will a machine made for transmuting gold also produce dangerous radiation? This is why I'm saying put it in a soft iron structure. I think what I'm going to find when I do the SEM analysis next week is this toroidal structure over, beam that's coming over here, and this braided beam here, and this beam here. Like it's coming here. It's coming from this bit going over here. And I think what it is when the containment fails, or when the substructures fail, then it spits material out. And anyway, I'll do a separate video on the evidence for that. But you know, there's no reason to say that you couldn't run these things, you know, remotely and underground. Like I say, this isn't for kids. However, the traveling structures of this kind have been with us all of our lives. You know, it is the pins and needles you feel from static electricity to a degree, but these structures are transient, whereas these structures are resonantly clustered. You certainly don't want lead to be captured from your reactor and then inserted into your body. You don't want that. It's just not a thing you want, right? So, because they have a magnetic aspect to them, and because when they hit a difference impedance change, then lots of thin layers. And I will explain, in my view, why that occurs. We've already shared the evidence to make that clear. So the types of shields, particularly the aluminium foil with cellulose shield that I've proposed, I think that will be a useful thing, particularly if it's highly negatively charged or grounded. You know, there's ways to mediate for that, but I would certainly start by having an iron chamber that this is in. Creating awareness says it doesn't spit it out, it spins it out. Yes, it spins it out. You're right. That's definitely a more accurate way to present. Yes. The truth is, there is one perfect beauty. I'm sorry, get over it. But the program can have variations in its implementation. If you want to see what's happening, is that you're seeing, for instance, coming out of artificial intelligence image generation, a particular type of face as being seen as beautiful, and that's not the AI generating that. That's the choice by the user, both on the input training material and on the acceptance of images produced. Right. So, you know, that's just the reality. Just how it is. Sorry, get over it. So which energy source do you consider to be the most appropriate to work with? Sound, ultrasound, light, pressure? Sound, definitely. Sound. Sound works in Roshan Amaza's vibrator, and he's only vibrating at 179 hertz. And you see exactly the same structures, these heart-shaped structures with the vortex and the anti-vortex and the materials differently transmuted in the overall structure, right? That's 179 hertz, okay? The difference is there that the structures are further apart. Whereas in the ultra experiment, when you've got, in our case, 43 kilohertz, they're really quite close together, but there's still a fair distance between many of these structures. So they've got still some room to breathe. You don't want it to be too close together, and it will depend on the type of fluid you're using. So the speed of sound in metal, liquid metal, is obviously different to that in water, to that in air. So you have to bear those things in mind. And that's why I think, at least initially, rather than having, ultimately, you will be able to create a particular piezo that produces the precise frequency that you need, that you will probably pulse for a period of time. The temperature would go up, it would go out of resonance, and you'd let it cool down, or you would have some active cooling on there, right? Then you would pulse again. So it would be a cycle on, cycle off, cycle on, cycle off, right? And that would maximize potentially the yield of a particular element from the overall reactants. What other applications can this work on? Oh, so I don't know if Malcolm is still in the chat, but Malcolm was in the chat earlier. But if he's still in the chat, this works on any sort of thing with a hydrocarbon, any carbon source. So Kelly McRaven says, Bob, do you have any a link to you can post here or direct me to in regards to your 5-year presentation? I would like to share it with some people. Just all of the O-Day presentations, essentially, with the Ultra presentation, the monopole clutch, and the Soliton videos, and the working with nature videos, probably as an additional ones. So Malcolm says he's contested, which is Malcolm speak for he's got problems with his data or computer. Laura, I'm not sure that's what happens to your mum's aluminium foil, but anyway. Question, how many O-Day, Bob? The actual presentation, so here's the funny thing. It's not funny, and it is funny. Last night, or yesterday, I was ill and exhausted, so I went to bed and I put an eye patch over because it's in the day and I'm trying to sleep. And I got something in my eye. Maybe it was in the eye patch, I don't know. And I started rubbing my eye, and I rubbed my eye, and I scratched my cornea. And I was in absolute excruciating pain. And so I had to pull the plug. I tried to work with one eye shut, and I was blinking furiously to try and fix it. And I was blinking, and I was editing the video about the inside, the natto images, or looks like natto, that Matsumoto observed, and I finally understood what he must have seen, which is kind of like the inside of these structures, but all the copper, phosphorus, and carbon and oxygen have come off, and it's left the inside contents without it having to burst through the structure. And so I did about 2 hours with blinking with one eye, just using one eye to do the transcript. And I thought, no, I've got to go to bed. And then I got up and I finished it off 1 to 2 o'clock in the morning. And then I just wanted to have a look at this, because this was the next in my list of things to go through to get out to you guys as soon as possible. And I put the sacred geometry over there, and then I realized, I'd already realized this, but I hadn't realized that the wheel with the third level, sorry, I'm not showing you, I hadn't realized that the third level tours were there. But the funny thing was, it dawned on me today that this image is number 182. So I called the whole experience Blink 182. So I found that funny anyway. For those that know the context. There's toroidal, there's magnetic fields that I think it was in 1963, it was determined go from the left side of the brain to the right side of the brain. There's inside of the brain magnetic flux loops. And you have yin yang, magnetic vortex and anti-vortex during consciousness, cognitive tasks. So there's certainly toroidal moments in the brain, in my view. Malcolm was worried about me yesterday and today that I was pushing it too hard, but I kind of felt I had to get out this particular image. So thank you for your concern, Malcolm. But this is done now. I don't have to have it in my brain. It's gone. I would avoid putting carbon into the system. I know it was in the systems of Bockris, but I think it was something to do with the gunpowder nature of the Bockris system. They were doing this explosion, this shock, this hitting of the Tibetan singing bowl. I think carbon interferes, as I said earlier. It stops the coherent matter forming in the Amasa gas on the tungsten and titanium. You don't get any cut throughs, you don't get any vaporization. It's not vaporization, it's literally transmutation and ball lightning forming. So I would avoid that. So alchemical science is doing an application video. Good, okay, well, you're welcome to strip things, but yeah. So anyways, it's my gift to you, alchemical science. I know you're wanted this answered, just like about everyone else. Thanks, Tammy. The last time I did that, I was helping my brother in his garden, and I cut a bramble, and it was under the trellis work, and it just did a perfect swipe and sliced the thorn did, and sliced across my cornea. That was nasty too. Right, DIY projects with chances. Your furnace has carbon. I don't think it's a real problem if there's a little carbon in there, but in the bulk of the material where you want these structures to do their work, you need to kind of avoid it. That's my gut feeling. So Crypto Alchemist says he's doing a live stream on pre-cataclysm macro terraforming sites of India and the Grand Canyon after the stream. So I better let you go then. I better finish up, hadn't I? You can get on with it then. All right, I think that's it from me today. So this was Ode Gold, or Ode Ra, Ode Sol, but it is the ring spot. That is the structure, and it's the fractal version of that that leads to the overall phenomena, and it leads to yin-yangs and transmutation, and it's because of knowing different masses that I ended up realizing this symbol actually was on the Fulcanelli ring, and that this sound, which is at the top of the Fulcanelli ring, was the key component that was not necessarily obvious, but I'd already showed exactly in the Supreme Court of the United Kingdom, and that at standing waves produces the sun and the moon, which you can literally see in this video. You can literally see the bright one and the not so bright one. And here we have it represented in traditional artwork from northwest India, from the Arabic desert region, at the standing waves with the two spots. And this is on the Supreme Court building. That's the node there. And these are the nodes that on the Fulcanelli ring lead from the node down to the center of this, and from the node down to this one to make your yang yin in this case. And we combine the alchemical symbol for calcium oxide, quicklime, and so just to clarify here, I've stated always that calcium, oxygen, and calcium oxide are all paramagnetic, right? So this is ideal material. And then you have lead up here. This is lead. And with the heat to make that a liquid, and with the sound to produce the standing waves, I believe that we will get a resonant approach here, a resonant approach like Pubu showed, rather than the explosive approach as was proven to work by John M. Bockris at Texas University in 1992. Yes, 32 years ago. So with that, I will say thank you very much. Buenas noches, dobra noc. And do you want to say good night, Yin? Goodbye. She says goodbye. All right. Thank you very much. I'll see you in the next stream.